just want to say hello to everyone. Welcome to the second session with Renee Blewett. I'm super excited. I don't know how many people were in the She Did That session. I hope that you guys loved it. We had a watch party where we watched the movie She Did That with Renee Blewett, and it was really amazing and inspirational. So we're really excited for this session. It's Ignite Your Impact through storytelling with Renee Blewett. My name is Audrey Owasum, and I'm the WBENC program lead for this session. And again, I'm super excited to get this session going. It's going to be really interactive. We're going to talk about your brand as a whole, and it's going to be a really great session. So as we continue our Women of Color outreach and our engagement in 2020, we are pleased to bring to you this Ignite Impact series. And this is the second session. This is focusing on improving your brand identities to improve your overall business capacity. And I would like to thank our sponsors, the Coca-Cola Company. I would like to thank Walmart. Hi, Michael. I'd like to thank JPMorgan Chase Co. And I would like to thank Southern California Edison for making this session possible. I'm super excited to dive right in, but I have a few announcements before we get started. So again, this session is going to be really different than what we've done before in the past. And so Renee will be taking questions throughout the session. So she's going to prompt questions that she would like the participants or you all to answer. So use the raise hand function to raise your hand and if you would like to answer the question that Renee asked. And in addition to that, you can also type in the chat your responses. Another great opportunity that we have in this session is we'll be breaking out into 3 different groups. And so in those 3 different groups, we have 3 different categories, which are product, service, and technology. So essentially, these categories reflect what product or service. So if you're a product business, I would like you to rename your name. If you look at my name, the example is there as a product, comma, your name and your business. So make sure that you're renaming your name to reflect the 3 categories. If you're a product business and most of your business is through products, please rename your name to have product in your actual name. If it's service, please do so. And if it's technology, please do so now. And this will be so that we can break you into your respective groups and ensure that you have the same type of organizations in the same groups. So if you guys can take a minute and if you hover over your name, there's some 3 dots there and you should have the opportunity or the box that says rename. So go ahead and put product, service, or technology before your name. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to do that. Let's see if we have everyone doing so. Yep. Okay, so make sure that you're renaming you're adding the category that you're in. And so I'm super excited to welcome Renee L Blewett. Renee is a digital content creator. She's a filmmaker. She's a branding expert. And I'm super excited for the knowledge that she's about to drop on all of us. So thank you guys so much. And without further ado, here is Renee Blewett.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Audrey. I am so excited to be here talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is storytelling, and storytelling specifically for the purpose of igniting women-owned brands. So the title of today's conversation is, as I just mentioned, Ignite Your Brand Success Through Storytelling. And before I get started, I'd like to thank WBENC for inviting me to walk through these steps with you. I know that for a lot of women, we're so focused on the logistics of our business that the marketing piece and the storytelling piece and connecting with our customers, it doesn't always feel natural, right? And so hopefully after today's conversation, everyone will be fired up to share their stories and understand why it's so important, especially in today's world. So I like to start with a quote from my mentor in my head, who is none other than Oprah Winfrey. If we could go to that next slide. So Oprah Winfrey was quoted saying, "I'm in the storytelling business. I believe that the humanity that all of us share is the stories of our lives, and everybody has a story. Your story is as important as the next person's story." So we know that Oprah has really built an entire empire on telling stories, from the Oprah Winfrey Show to, The Color Purple back in the day, and like all of these amazing projects that she's been at the helm of. And I, being someone who would love to walk in this woman's shoes, or at least be inspired by her journey, I've also built my career on storytelling. So I started off doing PR. Over the years, I've done PR for some of your favorite brands, Citibank, McDonald's, Seagram's, Lifetime Television. I've been on the agency side and on the corporate side. And I enjoyed that part of my career when I was doing it, but I realized that I wanted to have more control over which brands I'm working with and whose stories I'm telling. Because when you work in an agency environment, you are literally taking on the clients that they assign to you. So back in 2008, I decided that I was ready to take the proverbial leap and start my own PR consultancy. And in doing that, I was able to have so much more control over, who I was working with and who I was aligning my personal brand with. And through my consultancy, I got to specialize in, beauty, which is a category that I absolutely love. So that marriage was like perfect. But I also focused on brands that were either owned by Black women or brands that were targeting Black women. So I was very specific and very targeted with the stories that I was telling, because you have to be that passionate about those stories, and, or else, the editors that you're pitching to, the, events that you're producing just won't feel as authentic. So I want to actually stop and apologize. I live in New York City, specifically Brooklyn, New York, and New York is New Yorking in the background. If you hear some horns honking, because they only do it when I'm here talking, when I'm on a Zoom, please, hopefully it's not too much of a distraction. It's driving me crazy, but I'll keep going. So as I was saying, I have built this incredible career on telling stories. And so, inspired by all of the amazing women that I've met on my path, I launched a blog called In Her Shoes in 2009. And that blog was like my love letter to Black women entrepreneurs. Every week I was talking to a new woman in a different industry and just really digging deep into her mind to find out what inspired her to launch her business. What were some of her pain points? What were some of her successes and her wins? And so after blogging for quite a few years, I produced a photography exhibition, which was another way to tell these women's stories. We went around New York City, photographed 25 just amazing and powerful Black women entrepreneurs in their spaces where they create their magic. And, it was a beautiful event. People loved the images. We got to share their stories. We did a panel. Everything was lovely. And when I left that event, I knew that I needed to step my game up. And I really gave a lot of thought on what the next platform would be that I would use to tell these women's stories. And I know I shared some of this, last week during the screening, but for those of you who weren't in the room, I just want to kind of run it back and give you an idea of why I'm here today talking about the power of storytelling. So I prayed on it, I meditated on it, and I literally came up with the thought of like, okay, you've done blogging, you've done events, you've done the photography exhibition. What else is there? And I thought about it, and the medium that I had not explored yet was film. And I'm a huge fan of documentaries. I watch documentaries all the time, and I watch a lot of business documentaries and documentaries about the topic of entrepreneurship. And I always thought that there was something missing, right? Because when you start a business, the most successful businesses are filling a gap and really providing what's not already there. And so after watching all of these, amazing business documentaries and, documentaries about entrepreneurship, I was noticing that Black women were just a sprinkle in the conversation. They weren't centered in the conversation. And just from all of my years of working with Black women entrepreneurs and telling our stories, I knew that like our journey was so unique that it deserved its own moment, right? Black women are in this country starting businesses 10 times the national average on very few resources. And we talk about that in the film. You saw that last week. The funding gap is real when it comes to women-owned businesses and specifically Black women-owned businesses. And so when you consider that, as well as, some of the other barriers that we may have to success as entrepreneurs, I knew that our stories deserve to be told beyond social media. You could scroll through Instagram any given day and see a Black woman winning and talking about, what she's doing in her business. But usually that is just the highlight reel. And I knew from having these very private and like vulnerable conversations with women over the years that there's so much more to our story that needs to be told. And I felt like I was the person to memorialize that and to be the voice for these women that may not be sharing their stories with the world. So that was the inspiration for She Did That. And the film is now on Netflix. We got to watch it last week together. It's really opening up a bigger dialogue amongst women about the challenges we're facing and the power of our unique stories. When you look at someone like Lisa Price, founder of Carol's Daughter, she's been in business now for 27 years. And one would think that like, yeah, she's got this all figured out. It's a walk in the park for her. It's not, and it never will be, because entrepreneurship is definitely one of the most challenging journeys that you'll take in your life. And the thing that I really love and appreciate about Lisa is that when she got in that seat to talk to us for the film, she never approached the conversation from a place of like, I'm the expert, I know everything, because we all know that every day is different, every month is different, and every experience that you have as an entrepreneur is different than the last experience, right? So women like Lisa Price are a reminder of like how important your story is. I think everyone knows Lisa Price's story at this point. She started with, little to nothing in her kitchen right here in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and is now literally, in bed with the largest cosmetics brand in the world, L'Oreal. So to be able to go from these humble beginnings to partnering with a company as huge as L'Oreal is amazing, right? And she did it, she was self-made, over the years, she got some investors, but her story is that she was literally hand making these products in her kitchen. And her tagline is "Made in Brooklyn with Love." So with that said, that is why I understand the importance of storytelling in terms of igniting the success of your business. And that's why we're here today to talk about how you can share your story. So if we can move on to the next slide. So what exactly is brand storytelling? Storytelling for your brand is using a narrative to connect your brand to customers with a focus on linking what you stand for to the values you share with your customers. So these women here in this picture, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. I wish we were all in the same room so I could ask you the question and hear your response. But these two women are Robin and Andrea McBride. They are the founders of McBride Sisters Wine, okay? And their story is so incredibly powerful. And, when I thought about brands that I support, brands that I love, that have these amazing stories that they've shared, they are the first women who come to mind. And so I want to share a little bit of their story. So these two women did not grow up in the same household together. Their father, who was on his deathbed, literally, laying there, had the request that I want my daughters to meet. They didn't even know the other existed, right? And so as adults, I think that Andrea is a little bit younger. She may have been like in college. Robin is a few years older. She was like in her 20s, perhaps early 30s. And they, the father connected them and they met at LaGuardia Airport. And, first of all, they look like twins. So they see each other like, oh my God, you're my sister. And so they're talking and, over time, learning more and more about each other, their likes, their dislikes, their passions. And they find out that they both have a passion for wine and the wine business. What are the chances? One grew up in the US, one grew up in another country. And it's like, what are the chances that as grown women, you meet this woman who is your sister, who is your blood, but not only that, you have this passion for wine. So they decided to start this business together, and the business is doing so well. And they share their story all the time. And so one of their brand's values is family and sisterhood. And the sisterhood, I think, is what really connects them to their customers. Women love wine. Even though we aren't really represented in the wine industry, we drink wine more than anyone else. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm drinking a lot of wine at home, during this lockdown. And so what's beautiful about their story is, the realness of it all. A lot of us may come from families that are a little complicated like that. How would you feel learning at such an older age that your father was hiding, or chose not to share with you that you had a sister, but when you meet, there's this powerful bond and you guys are able to build legacy together and build generational wealth together and build this incredible business together. So I wanted to share that. McBride Sisters. If you guys are into wine, they have everything you can imagine, from reds to whites to rosés. And they also have a subscription service. So if you want to check them out and support, please do. It's another powerful Black women-owned brand. So let's move to the next slide, which is, why does brand storytelling matter? So the marketplace is more crowded than ever, and competing for a customer's attention is a lot more difficult than it was just a decade ago. Like if you go on social media and just scroll through your phone between Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, we are constantly getting bombarded with marketing messages, just everywhere we turn. I mean, I would love to see the numbers actually on throughout one given day, how many marketing messages we're receiving. And so because we are, getting hit from all of these angles, from all of these different brands vying for our attention, it's important that your brand's message is authentic, that it is, that it's powerful, and that it's connecting with humanity. And one way to do that is to really stop focusing so much on your products and your service, and really focus on why your business exists in the first place. That honestly is a lot more intriguing and a lot more likely to connect you to your customer than just talking about your product or service. Of course, it's important that your product or service is of quality, that you're solving a need in the world, but that's not what people are always there for. Like when I think about going back to McBride Sisters Wine, there's wine all over the place, but because I know their story, because I want to support them, because they share some of their struggles in business, with being one of very few Black women-owned wineries, with being, a woman in a male-dominated industry, these are all reasons why we want to support that brand and we want to see them win. One other example that I like to share with you, I did kind of share this really exciting news last week when we were watching the film. After that conversation, I shared that I was in DC last week, talking to a couple of brands for the next installation of She Did That. And one of the brands that we spoke to is a Black woman-owned CBD and wellness brand. And so when I was talking to them about, their why, they shared that like they needed it. They themselves were burnt out. As women, we wear so many hats in the world. You know, we're running our houses, we're running our businesses, we're running our relationships, you're dealing with your children. And even now, in addition to being a business owner, a lot of women are also educators, you know, really helping their children with this whole remote learning piece. And so it's a lot. And they wanted to give women tools and create a toolbox for us to be able to handle these full lives that we've been blessed with, right? Because even though we're wearing all of these hats, it's a blessing to be able to do all of these things. It's a blessing to be able to contribute to your community and create products that people need and that are giving people the tools they need to live a better life. But one of the things that they said that they were ashamed of at first is the fact that although their brand is centered in wellness, it's a CBD brand, all of their messaging is about making sure that women are really taking care of themselves. Although that's their messaging, they were able to admit to their customers that, yes, we're doing this and we're centering wellness, but guess what? We're still trying to figure it out ourselves. You know, one of the women was like, I have to make a concerted effort to make time for myself. I have to put it in my calendar. You know, my sister has to remind me, my husband has to remind me that, like, you've been at your computer for the last 10 hours. Did you eat today? Did you, you know, take a walk? Did you get some fresh air? And so that's a powerful thing to be able to say, that although, you know, their brand is all about wellness, they don't have it figured out yet. And so they have in fact created something that is not only for the world and for their community of women that they support, their tribe, but it's also for them. And it kind of reminds me of a quote that Oprah Winfrey shares a lot, going back to my mentor in my head. She shares this quote by Maya Angelou that is basically, the message is, we teach what we need to learn. And for a lot of women, it's hard to admit that while you're teaching something, is something that you still need to learn. And there's a lot of power in that. So moving on to the next slide. Storytelling sells, storytelling resonates, and storytelling connects. Let's get into the science behind storytelling. Stories are memorable and have the power to boost our brain's neural activity, lighting it up like a Christmas tree, basically. When more parts of our brain are active at the same time, our ability to remember whatever we're engaged with increases significantly. And so as I learned this over the years, I thought that this was really interesting because, you know, when I think about my brain kind of being busy, I don't think about me retaining more of it because it's busy, but that is in fact how the brain works. And so in this marketing industry that's filled with so much uninspired content, narrative-driven content is more alluring than ever before. So we have to trust the neuroscience. If we want to earn people's attention and really bake our brand story into their brains, we have to do it through sharing those narratives that speak to the wants, the fears, and beliefs of our audience. So moving down to points of empathy. Storytelling with empathy can be especially important because when you're in business, you're in tune with others. You can better serve them as customers, be a better leader, and design better products and services. And so this is where I'd love to kind of get your thoughts. What are some points of empathy that you've seen brands leverage to emotionally connect with their consumers? And I'll share, you know, something that I've been observing with everything going on in the world right now. I'm enjoying seeing so many brands connect with their customers about the uncertainty of the world we live in through this pandemic. You know, it gives you a sense of like, I'm not in this alone. You know, a lot of us are isolated from our families and our friends. And so if we see brands out there sharing messaging, sharing stories about what's happening in the world and how they want to be a partner to us, and just understanding that, you know, the fears and the concerns and, you know, the insecurities that we have are not our own, that is a brand that I want to support. That is a brand that is in touch with what's happening with their customers and knows that they need to be there as a friend and a supporter. So my question for you is, what are some points of empathy you've seen brands leverage to emotionally connect with their customers?
Feel free to raise your hand if you would like to answer this question, or go ahead and list it in the chat box.
So Audrey, what we could do, I'll move on to the next slide. If we get some answers for that, we can share those throughout the conversation. So the next thing that we need to identify, someone is mentioning Ben and Jerry's. Audrey, could you read that? For some reason, I'm not able to see the whole.
Of course. Of course. So we have Tatia. She says, I love what Ben & Jerry's ice cream brand is doing to address racial inequality.
Yes. 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 There are a lot of brands addressing racial inequality now. And, you know, the reality is some of it is performative. You know, we all understand that. We know that after the George Floyd riots, there were all of these, you know, magical black boxes popping up on Instagram. A lot of the same messages, you know, people saying that they're listening and they're learning. But now, 6-7 months later, where are these people? And so that's another really important piece of your brand story. You need to be consistent with it. You know, if you say that you're committed to something, or you have a particular mission, you need to give customers a reason to believe. So it needs to be more than a story. It needs to be an action taken behind it, and consistent action.
We have Dr. Dana also raised her hand. She would like to answer that question as well.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. So what I can say personally is Texas A&M University, I'm an alumnus of that university, and we are actively creating coalitions, action committees to really talk about not only Black Lives Matter and being important, but being a more inclusive in a university to represent what it means to be world class. So I'm on several commissions with them to make that happen.
I love it. I love it. Excellent work. Yes. So, you know, the work that we're doing with brands or with educational institutions, like those stories, like I said, they need to be more than just a story. You know, it can't be fiction. Like, if this is what you're sharing, it has to be real. It has to be what your business is rooted in, and it has to be something that you're committed to every single day. So another thing that's important to identify when you're telling your brand story is like points of adversity. Storytelling can be used as a tool to empower people and really help us navigate through uncertain times. A good story connects us with the storyteller. A brilliant story connects us with ourselves. Again, our hopes, our fears, our dreams, and our desires. And so from this place of connection, we feel less alone, and we think about how we might change, and actions often follow. So another question for you ladies, which brands do you see creating safe spaces for their customers to be vulnerable and connect through adversity? And again, I'm going to jump in and just talk about, you know, something that I noticed. I'm not sure how many of you follow Reebok, but they have this beautifully shot, powerful video that they're sharing on social right now about, you know, the importance of our vote in this upcoming election. And, you know, there are a lot of people in this country that are unable to vote, whether they are not, you know, citizens, or, you know, there's a lot. And I didn't realize until I saw this video how many able-bodied people are unable to vote in this country. And so this video is showing all of these like people, you know, different ages, different races, different cultural backgrounds, talking about the importance of us, you know, people who are able to vote, going out to vote and being their voice. And when you think about that level of responsibility that we have to not only impact change in this country through our vote, but to also be a voice for people who cannot go out and vote. I mean, I'm committed to voting. I can't wait to get into, the early voting opportunities here in New York City. But if for whatever reason, prior to watching that video, I didn't think it was important to vote, I would have had to really rethink that, because just seeing these people, some of them were disabled, clearly some of them were immigrants, and to see them talk about like, I need you to be my voice, you can't underestimate the power of that and the importance of that. So again, my question to you is, which brands do you see creating safe spaces for their customers to be vulnerable and connect through adversity? And if you can, share the brand, but if you can, briefly also share a little bit about the space that they're creating for conversations that can be, viewed as adversity.
Okay, we have a few individuals who put in the chat box. Dr. Dana said Aggie E-Conversations Forum. I guess they openly talk about race. We have Mess in the Bottle. They do a good job with that. Procter & Gamble, Thai Dove, Savage by Fenty, Nike. We have Peloton.
Yes.
I think that's it. Does anyone want to raise their hand or go on off of mute and talk about something that they're involved with?
Oh, someone mentioned that Peloton created a private chat. I can't see the whole message.
Yeah, they said Peloton created a private chat with their Black Girl Magic group with the CEO.
Oh, nice. With the CEO. Now that's powerful, because a lot of times the customer doesn't really get to connect with the CEO. Sometimes for smaller startup brands, someone mentioned Mess in a Bottle. I know Kalila, who is the founder, is very, very, very involved with her customers. But when you start thinking about these larger brands that are household names, the founders aren't always as involved and as present. So that's amazing. So I'd like to move on to purpose, because storytelling is what gives our brand a purpose. And that purpose will drive your business forward. Purpose is about values. It is about who you are, what you stand for, what you do for others, and the causes you serve. So I know that just now we were talking about some examples of some brands that, are leaning into adversity, and then also really leaning into empathy. But I want to share some examples of some brands that I think are telling powerful brand stories. So if we can move on to that slide. So Warby Parker Eyewear. I am, especially now that we are spending so much time on our devices, I am a committed, woman who wears glasses now. Wasn't leaning into it as much as first, but I don't really have a choice at this point. And it's important to purchase glasses from companies that really have a mission and a purpose that aligns with my own. And so Warby Parker is one of those brands. They don't just sell prescription eyeglasses and sunglasses. They invite their customers. They're inviting us to be a part of their brand's movement. It's a socially conscious brand with genuine vision. They donate a portion of their monthly profits to their nonprofit partners to make basic eye care affordable for people in different countries, underdeveloped countries. So how amazing is that? So not only are you buying these fly, stylish glasses, you're kind of helping to make the world a better place. And you're helping to give people in developing countries an opportunity to wear quality eyewear and improve their vision the same way that you're doing with yours. The next powerful brand story that I'd love to share with you is Soul Cycle. I love their hashtag Find Your Soul. I've only been to Soul Cycle a few times myself. It was intense, but when I tell you, it was a spiritual experience. Like my girlfriend who invited me was like, yeah, you're gonna be crying by the time you leave this. And I'm like, a sight? What am I crying? Like, am I crying because I can't keep up? Or like, what am I crying about? I didn't understand it. But when I tell you, it was like church. And so when they say that they're offering this tribal transcendent experience with each workout, I believe it because I experienced it. A quote that they shared is that our writers share a soul experience. We laugh, we cry, we grow, and we do it together as a community. And so that is the promise of real motivation and a sense of belonging, right? Because we want to be a part of this community. We want to be a part of this tribe. And we want to go to a place where other people are as committed to health and wellness, just like we are. And like I said, the spiritual piece of it, I don't even know how we got there, but our particular instructor had us saying like affirmations and like positive affirmations to ourselves as we were cycling. And it just got me emotional and choked up. So when they talk about these experiences, I can say from my own experience that I did find my soul through Soul Cycle. And that's a powerful statement to make. The next brand story that I like to share is Nike. I mean, come on. Nike's Just Do It campaign is possibly the best brand story ever. They launched it nearly 30 years ago. And it's a great example of the many ways a brand can use storytelling in their communication and content strategy. We've all felt the need to be a rebel, to push against stereotypes and accomplish whatever it is in our lives. And this Just Do It campaign that they've been running now for, 3 decades, it really gets at the internal struggle to try and fail or not try at all. And guess what? We want to just do it because we don't want to be that person that didn't try at all. So moving on, a lot of the women that I have talked to, women that I have done PR for, when I have received a little bit of pushback on like, well, what is my story? Do I even have a story? Is my story compelling enough to share? Will it drive success in my business? The answer is always yes, because guess what? There are so many different types of stories to tell, And so when you look at the different types of stories and really sit and think about your journey as an entrepreneur or this business that you've built or this culture that you've built, it's a great opportunity to explore what you think might really resonate with your audience or your tribe, which we'll get into next. But here are a few story types. One is mission, the story of why your brand even exists. Another story type is legacy, telling the story of your past as a company or a brand. And then there's the founders and employee story. So that could be your personal entrepreneurial journey and or the story of your people. Now, I will say that I have, a special place in my heart for women specifically who are sharing their entrepreneurial journey, because we go through so much to build these businesses and build these legacies. And so my thought is that each and every time a woman is honest about her journey, the highs, the lows, the muck and like everything in between, you are really empowering another woman to keep going no matter what obstacle she's facing. And so, after a lot of women watch, she did that and they hear about, Melissa Butler's challenges with Shark Tank and how they shot her idea down, or, someone like Lovey, who is now a New York Times bestselling author, but at one point was afraid to call herself a writer because she didn't think she fit that description. Or someone like Tanya Rapley, who is the founder of My Fab Finance, but created her business because she herself was in a situation where she didn't have her finances together. And so because she didn't have her finances together, she had to stay in a relationship that was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, and financially abusive. And once she got out of that alive, her mission was, I am going to make sure that other women don't have to go through what I went through. She almost lost her life because she didn't have the money to leave. And knowing that she was able to save her life and possibly save others is what drove her to launch her business. And so when you think about those very personal stories and experiences, it's like those stories are your secret sauce because you are the secret sauce for your brand. And we're in a world, especially with social media, where so many people can look at what you're doing, be inspired by what you're doing, and try to replicate it. But the one thing they cannot replicate ever, even if they tried, is your personal story. You know, what brought you to this place, why you're doing what you do. And that's why it's so important that we share that. Another story type is customers, and that would be looking at our customers' unique use of our products and services. So my question for you is, what other types of brand stories do we tell or have you heard? And someone did ask, I did see that question pop up. Yes, this is Queen Afua. She is an icon in the wellness industry, and she has an incredible story. So I wanted to honor her today with this image. So the question again is, what other types of brand stories do we tell? And while we're gathering those responses, I'm looking at the time, we can move on to building your tribe. So now that you've decided that you're ready to share your story and your personal narrative, once you've identified the type of brand story that you want to tell, what's next? You have to figure out, who am I sharing the story with? Who is my customer? You know, who is my target audience? And I like to call these people your tribe. And moving down to the next slide, tribes are created in our hearts and minds, and they're linked by common lifestyles, values, and interests. They're not just formed in the physical world, they're also formed within digital communities. And I'm sure that a lot of you can understand the importance of digital communities now, especially that we're not out having, you know, as many live events and coming together in large groups and numbers. I will honestly say the digital community is what is keeping me afloat right now. You know, like it can be very lonely. It can be very isolating to work from home, especially as a solopreneur. So I tap into so many different digital communities too, you know, starting with just doing something that's fun that has nothing to do with work. You know, D Nice, I'm sure a lot of you have been, you know, in his club quarantine since day one. That is a digital community that he built. You know, he shared his story with that. He started Club Quarantine. He came on IG Live one day, just playing music, you know, missing his ability to go out and DJ at these live events and corporate events. But he started playing music for people, and it just turned into hours and hours and hours of all of this great music. And, you know, the first few days that I was on, there were maybe only 200 people in the room. But as the word kind of spread and people were talking about this incredible music that he's sharing on his live, he got up to 100K. So he has, in fact, built a digital community. And it's a community of people who want to kind of escape the problems of the world through music. And that's a powerful thing. So back to building community and building your tribe, we don't just buy from brands because of what their products and services can do. We buy from brands that help identify and clarify who we are. Building a loyal tribe is what differentiates repeat business from loyal customers. And so moving down to building your tribe, here are some examples of a few brands that I really think are getting this tribe building thing right. Apple is one. I mean, even right here in front of me, you know, I have my phone, I have my laptop, I have my second laptop, I have my tablet. I mean, come on, I have an Apple Watch. I am officially a part of Apple's tribe. I am loyal to Apple, and that's another part of being in a tribe. You're loyal to this community because you understand what it's doing for you, how it's impacting your life, whether it's making your life easier, whether it's aligning with your own personal values, or if it's, you know, sometimes we have to really think about it. A lot of these tribes that we're a part of with brands are also status symbols. And Tesla would be an example of that. I mean, the Tesla tribe is not that big. And it could just be because, you know, everyone isn't quite ready to get into that type of automobile or may not have the budget to. But the people who are in this tribe are loyal and committed, and it is a lifestyle. So my question for you right now is, which brand tribes are you a part of and why? And I want to sit on this one a little bit because I'm curious to know what brand tribes you're a part of and why you're a part of these brand tribes and why you're loyal to them.
Okay.
So someone said Jeep. I've seen so many Instagram pages committed to people who are Jeep drivers. Why would you say Jeep? And I see the honey pot. That's a good one. Apple. Yeah. Peloton. Samsung. Okay. Samsung challenging the whole Apple tribe. And so, yes, these are Tesla. These are examples of brands that have created community, and this community understands the importance of, you know, being a part of this community. People who are really into Nike probably aren't really rocking Adidas and Puma. You know, people who are driving Jeeps probably really don't care about Range Rovers. And so someone's shouting out Chico's. I haven't gotten into that brand yet. Honda, yes, people who drive Hondas are really, really, really committed to Hondas, and rightfully so. It's a quality car, it's reliable, it's affordable. ASOS, I love ASOS. Oh my gosh. I wish that I had somewhere to wear some of the things that I've been ordering from ASOS. But again, this is the importance of building a tribe, because these people are going to speak for your brand, your products, your services when you're not around. Like, it's an extension of your brand, because these are people who are talking about your brand day and night when you could be asleep and these people are still talking about your brand because they're that loyal and committed to it. So the question that, Audrey, I think we might want to cover this in our breakout session, because I see it's 2:51 already. But the last question I have for you, if we could go to the last slide, is, what is your story? And Audrey, correct me if I'm wrong, are we going to cover this in our breakout groups?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so that's the conversation, ladies. I hope that, you know, if at the beginning of this discussion, anyone was on the fence about why it's important to tell your brand stories, I hope you're on the other side of that fence. With, like I said, the world that we live in today, with people getting flooded with marketing messages and, like, you know, all of these brands vying for their attention, we are in a space now where we need to understand the ethos of the brands that we're supporting. We need to understand, you know, what are their values, you know, and do their values align with mine? That is really important, especially if you think about, you know, the time that we're in with the Black Lives Matter conversation. So many brands, like I said, were out there talking about their commitment to amplifying Black voices and sharing our stories and supporting our community and buying Black and supporting our businesses. But a lot of them have disappeared. And so I, for one, am one that is like, I'm noticing the brands that had a lot to say, you know, when it was on trend, but now, you know, it's business as usual. Those are brands that I'm not supporting. So your brand story is it's the glue. It's the bridge between you and your customer. And it's why your customer will stay loyal to you, whether it's a product or a service you're providing. So thank you so much, ladies, for listening. We are going to be giving everyone a copy of this presentation. I think that they'll be sending out to you via email. So if you want to refer back to it, look at some of the different types of stories. If you're trying to develop your story still, look back on the list of the types of stories and figure out what type of story you want to tell. So Audrey, I'll let you take it from here. And I'm so excited to talk to everyone in the breakout rooms.
Thank you